Salutations friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be answering your questions, responding to comments and the like. I love doing these videos and I've been wanting to sit down and get in depth with some of these questions and comments that have been on my video the past few weeks. So if you would like to know what I have to say, then keep watching. If this is your first time tuning in, hi, my name is Kristen. I run this channel called Beauty Meow. It is a primarily fragrance related channel where I share with you fragrance discussions, reviews, recommendations, and the like. If you like that type of content, make sure to subscribe to my channel and don't forget to hit the little bell so you can be notified when I have new videos up. Now these types of videos, every few weeks, I like to go through comments and questions and answer and kind of go in depth with what some of you guys ask me or have to say. I love doing this. I know the last time I kind of did this was a few weeks ago, and then before that I kind of answered questions on advice. I did mention in that video I was going to kind of see if there was any underlying questions you guys had in regards to today's video, but there are just so many comments that I'm going to get really in depth with. This video is going to be on the longer, more chatty side. I decided the next time I do this video I'm going to do that because some of these comments are all over the place, and I love that because there's a lot of different questions and just things that we can talk about, but I'm going to try and tailor the videos more towards specific themes, or kind of grouping comments and the chat together to like more of a common discussion rather than just all over the place. So just because it's all over the place doesn't mean that these questions aren't good and I am not excited to talk about. So the first one we're going to talk about is from Iris, and this was on my advice for starting a fragrance collection video. If I have any relevant videos that I reference, I will link them in the description box. And Iris replies, okay, so for now a question for you after hearing your answers. Do you ever get tired or bored of seeing your collection after a certain amount of time? For me, I collect a lot for someone who doesn't wear perfume too often, and I can most definitely afford them to grow even bigger with newer scents. But for the amount I wear, regardless of novelty newness factor, my perfume collection is becoming closer to a clutter and I get bored with the whole array of them at once. How do you leave that dissatisfaction alone, if you experience any, and just accept seeing it as being a big part of a collection? So I think the most important thing is to realize what is your definition of a collection. What does it mean to you? Collecting isn't hoarding. There has to be a method to your madness. Otherwise it's kind of like a fragrance addiction, like a shopaholic addiction, or it's again, like collecting to me is like an action. It's a hobby. It's something that you do. And with a lot of people's hobbies, there is a rhyme or reason, rules and boundaries. For me, my collection is on the larger side, but for a lot of people, they don't want a larger collection. It's not that they don't have the budget for it or the space for it. It's just not how they want to collect. And I think for yourself that you're just kind of looking at your large collection and it doesn't have interest to you because there's too much. You can have a very curated collection. So I'm going to assume that your large collection, let's say, is 100 bottles, which is a very large collection, and you don't wear fragrances too often, which is fine. It's very hard for me to wear all of these. If I wore them all at the same time, I think I would probably just pass out and wake up in the hospital from suffocation from that many scents. But I think when you're looking at fragrances and the fragrances you wear as a collection, that kind of adjective or verb, or that action of collecting. It's not just kind of like, this is my fragrance collection as a noun. It's an action. You're collecting. That means that there is a rhyme or reason to how you do it. And if it's too big and you're getting dissatisfied and you're looking at it and you're not happy with it, well, it's time to clutter it down. It's time to curate it and figure out, why are you collecting fragrances? If you don't wear fragrances too much, then you're probably collecting for more than just utilitarian purposes, which is totally fine. You could collect fragrances just for utilitarian purposes. And like I said before, the size of your collection does not mean you are more valid in the community. It doesn't mean that you have to own 200 bottles of expensive niche. You could have just samples or decants, or just have 3 or 4 full bottles in your collection and a handful of decants. It doesn't matter. You are the one that's setting the limits for your collection. So I think the thing where you decide if it's something that you need to do is, I think you already know that. You're looking at it and you're like, So I think that if you know that you're looking at it and it's feeling too cluttered, too disorganized, you're looking at it and it's not getting you happy or excited to add to it, you'll probably be a lot more excited to curate it. And I know a lot of people like the art of kind of decluttering. It feels very satisfying to sit down and organize and figure out what they want. There's a lot of satisfaction to that for a lot of people. I'm the kind of the person that adds to it, but there is a method to that, but there's nothing wrong with being the other way. So what I would say is first figure out what type of fragrances you want in your collection and why you've added them to your collection. If you added them just because they were good deals, those might be the types of fragrances that you're able to kind of trim the fat off of your entire collection and pare it down to something that you enjoy more. Or maybe there's a few scents that give you a lot of confidence when you wear it, or you smell it and they make you very happy, or your favorite fragrance to wear to work. Like, start by seeing the fragrances that you absolutely want to keep in your collection, and then kind of figure out if the other fragrances in your collection make you happy and if you should get rid of them. Because if you like the idea of having a large collection so that you can wear them, you could always decant a small amount, like 5 to 10 mil in a decanter, and sell off the bottles so that way you can wear the fragrances, but you don't have a large looming collection of scents if it's just something that you look at and you're not interested or inspired by. Really, ultimately, when it comes down over the novelty newness factor, there is a lot of euphoria and happiness with acquiring things, but don't ignore the euphoria or excitement of like sitting down, organizing, and maybe curating something. That's what I'm saying to kind of answer your question is like, if you are dissatisfied with your collection, then I think it's time to be a collector, and that could mean curating your collection, having an active participation in what stays and what goes. You definitely don't have to be a collector and constantly add things. You could have a collection amount. You could say, I'm only gonna have 5 full bottles of perfume in my collection. So then as you fall in love with newer things, or maybe you revisit older ones that you loved, you would edit and remove, like a collection doesn't have to be over 100 bottles. A collection doesn't have to be over 2 bottles. It's what you decide a collection is. And I think, again, if you're saying that you're dissatisfied, you're looking at it like with clutter, you're kind of meh about it, I think it's time for maybe you to sit down, have some fun, maybe, have some coffee, a nice sparkling glass of water, glass of wine, whatever makes you happy, and just sit down and just edit your collection. And you'll be surprised how much you enjoy that. I actually find a lot of happiness when I edit my collection. Weirdly enough, I don't do it very often because I'm more of the adding rather than subtracting. But when I do sit down and edit my collection, like every few years, I actually really enjoy it. This next comment is going to be a continuation of a discussion that we've had over older videos, not older videos, over the videos of the past few weeks, and brought up on some newer videos too about discontinuations, curating houses, editing their fragrances, and the like. And it's the continuation on my thoughts of Maison Lancome line. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because this is an overarching thing I see with Maison Lancome, and a lot of you guys agreed with me that what they're doing is kind of like horrible. So a little TLDR, if you guys just want to catch up, if this is your first video and you're wondering what I'm talking about, my favorite premier line from a designer is tied between Armani Privé and Maison Lancome. One day I might like Armani Privé over Maison Lancome. It just depends on the day. I really genuinely love those lines for their artistry and for their wearability and their quality. Their price point too is high, but not inaccessibly high, and it's something I appreciate. There are some fragrances from those houses that are higher than others from the same line, but generally they're not crazy inaccessibly priced. The issue I have with Maison Lancome, and again going into the TLDR, is the fact that they tend to over curate, over edit, over 86x a lot of their more original, more beautiful, more profound fragrances, and they have been re-adding or having newer releases added to their collection that don't seem to fit the original lineup, and it doesn't have the same impact or presence than the original ones had. And I don't have an issue with maybe 1 or 2 fragrances over the course of maybe 10 years being discontinued or being more limited edition and then leaving. But none of these fragrances are like limited edition. They're just like, oh, it's gone. And there's like no warning. So if you needed to buy a backup or something, you probably would miss out, or you'd have to pay a lot more money because it was discontinued really quickly or, you know, very silently. The issue with Lancome is, and I've kind of went into this a little bit, is that they had some heavy hitting fragrances that were unique and special and very much part of that lineup. And I use Valentines as an example because I love a powdery, aromatic gourmand fragrance. And you normally see that with violets and irises, which are fantastic and I love, but having a lavender. And lavender in fragrances I find to be either more kind of aromatherapy or more like medicinal, aromatic. And what was nice about Valentines, it was more of a culinary lavender, a more creamy lavender. And it was beautiful, and it was slightly powdery, aromatic, and I just had this kind of like creamy cookie beverage vibe to it. It was so unique, but very wearable. It wasn't like an intimidating aromatic floral gourmand. And sometimes when you get those violet gourmands or those iris gourmands, they can be very powdery, almost chalky. And some people just don't like powdery fragrances, and that's okay. But what was unique with Valentines is it didn't have that. And they axed it. And they also axed 2 very beloved rose fragrances, Roses Parfait and Roses Barbarenza. And when I was talking about in Magnolia Rosé review, is that the Magnolia Rosé just has that like rose accord, like that crystalline, sweet rose. It smelled like more of a flanker to either Roses Parfait or Roses Barbarenza, rather than its own unique scent. And I was like, well, then why would you discontinue both of these to add something that smells so wickedly similar? And it's a different scent, but that rose is very strong, and that's fine because it's beautiful and I do really enjoy that fragrance. But it seemed unnecessary and almost like more of a cash grab for them to axe these 2 rose fragrances to add another in, so that way people who already own these 2 roses, now they're going to buy this magnolia fragrance. It just seemed more marketing and less inspired creation. And if there was like more of a discussion about how and why and when they discontinue fragrances, that would be okay. A lot of houses will have like flankers, and you know that this is the yearly flanker, and then once this, you know, the year's over, it's gone. That's fine. I know that Dolce & Gabbana does it with their light blue flankers. Terry Mugler tends to do that with their angel flankers. I definitely see it with Elizabeth Arden green tea flankers. It's like every year there's a new one. But there's no rhyme or reason to why Lancome does it, and it just seems like there's no need for them to only have like 5 or 6 fragrances in their lineup, and to almost get rid of fragrances within like 2 to 3 years that people really fall in love with, that are unique and special and very distinctive, but also very wearable. It just seems, it's just troublesome to me. And that's kind of like why I'm talking about this, is because when I did that video and then I did the follow-up, a lot of you guys agree. You think it's brutal, you think it's horrible, you miss the originals, and the ones that they're coming out with, the new ones, albeit are beautiful, but they do not fit the original kind of integrity and presence and quality of the originals. And if like one wave of fragrances came out and it was kind of a dud, and then they're like, okay, we kind of got to go back to this because this is what people want and they're buying, and what made people really fall in love with this line. But I feel like it's been 2 to 3 waves, and it's just been like nice fragrances that have come out, but not up to the same par as the originals. And I don't think a line should be going down with almost every single fragrance. So the Figs and Citrus fragrance, I love. It's a great fragrance. It's fantastic for summer, and it smells really good. I don't think it's as beautiful as the other fragrances that came out, or the fragrances that were discontinued. I think that some of the fragrances that came out could almost be maybe flankers to Olivia's Belt. I don't know. I feel like the way that Lancome is doing this is they're being more proactive with axing fragrances and less proactive with putting in the time and effort to create really beautiful, unique fragrances that fit within that lineup. And I believe it was Shop Queen, and if it wasn't Shop Queen's comments on one of my previous videos, I'm sorry, but I believe that they said they were talking about how Irish Dragée was a nice fragrance, but it was lackluster because it could easily have had like almond and been this really powerful, beautiful gourmand fragrance that fit with the original, that stood on its own, and would have just been a perfect fit with the line. And they just kind of dropped the ball. And that's the problem I have, is they have the talent, they have the people willing to buy these fragrances, they have the budget. I mean, it's Lancome. They could definitely spend a little bit more time trying to figure out exactly what this lineup is and staying true to that. And that's kind of like why I think I like Armani Privé, is that they have a very true idea of what their line is. It's not anything crazy creative, but it's quality. And the ones that aren't super quality are still very wearable and beautiful and cohesive as part of the line. It doesn't feel disjointed. It doesn't feel like, you know, maybe they're being lazy or cash grab. It's kind of like, well, this one isn't as good as the other two that came out, but they all fit together very well, and they fit together as like a house. And Lancome started off here and went here, and they're not even cohesive except for this like rose accord. So that's just my thoughts, and seems to be a very common consensus. Doesn't mean that everyone thinks that, and it doesn't mean that the house is bad. I still really like it. I just wish they were less proactive with discontinuing fragrances and more proactive with really making sure the fragrances that they are releasing are extra special. Now, on my discontinued fragrance video, Dion Grenache, and I mispronounced your name, I'm sorry. This is a great kind of continuation, and I just kind of want to tell fragrance houses, be more honest with this. They wish they gave us notice that fragrances would be discontinued. They just discontinued Mon Precious Nectar before I got a chance to purchase a bottle. I keep saying I'm going to get a bottle, and now it's too late. Yes, houses, please give proper notice. You see these big advertisements, a lot of marketing goes behind releasing fragrances, and we appreciate that. But there's a lot of people who love scents, and I feel like when houses discontinue something, sometimes even the sales associates don't know, like who work with the brands. It's like they get a notice, like, or a letter a week prior, or their fragrances get pulled. And I think that houses don't have to do it, but it would be really nice. And it's also a great way to make more money, because I guarantee you, if there's a favorite fragrance out there and you're discontinuing it, if you just say this won't be available anymore, you'll sell a lot of it usually. I have had a bunch of people reach out and say they would have bought like multiple bottles of this fragrance, multiple bottles of this fragrance. And I think that basically kind of giving people a heads up. And it doesn't even have to be a long period of time. You don't have to say, well, I had this here from a previous video I filmed. Eau de Soleil Blanc from Tom Ford is going to be discontinued in 6 months. Like, that might be a little reaching, but it might be like, hey, you know, like, we're curating our line, we're really excited for the new fragrances we're adding. They're coming out this summer. Summer's in 4 weeks. When the new fragrances come out, these are the fragrances we're saying goodbye to. And so that way people can know, oh, I really love this fragrance, I'm going to buy 1 or 2 bottles to stock up. Or maybe they've been waiting to buy a bottle, and this might be the reason to do it. It doesn't have to be more than a few weeks, or maybe just 2 weeks, something. Give people like a pay period amount of time, so that way if they need to save up for it, they can purchase it, rather than just getting rid of things willy-nilly and silently. It's just, I think it's a little unfair, and I definitely agree, it's really frustrating. Anyway, I'm gonna end the video here, but I am gonna share with you guys something, because I've had this for about a year and I kind of wanted to talk about it for a little bit. A year ago I did a video talking about my favorite rose products, and a brand called Roses Forever that does preserved roses had sent me a beautiful bouquet of red roses, preserved roses, and I was like almost, I think I was crying in the video because I sent it around the time of my birthday, and my dad had always given me flowers, so it was like I didn't think I was gonna get flowers for my birthday, and you know, I got them and it just kind of reminded me of my dad. And then they also sent me a really pretty pink rose bouquet when my mom was in the hospital, and they are really beautiful, and I actually ended up giving them to my mom. I was going to show you them here, but I don't have them because my mom has them. But just to kind of like chat you guys up about them, I'll have some information about them below. They didn't sponsor this video or anything, I'm just talking about them. I just kind of wanted to let you guys know that it's been about a year since I've had these, and they still look really beautiful. They look like they're in near perfect condition. They're a little dusty. I do try to dust them a little bit, but this sits on my vanity with my like my body oils and my body mists, and it just looks really pretty. So I'm just going to show you the box if you wanted to check it out. Like I said, it's a little dusty, but the flowers just look so beautiful. And when you get them, they are scented, and even a year later I can still smell them. So this was really beautiful. Again, a humongous thank you to Roses Forever. Again, this video is not sponsored. I just wanted to kind of give them a shout out because it's been almost a year and they still look really beautiful. And the pink ones, again, look really, really pretty, but my mom has them and I can't grab them. But I just kind of wanted to share them with you. And again, all the information on this company will be linked below. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed these kind of discussions and chit chats. The next time I do this video in a few weeks, I will definitely ask you guys if there's any specific questions you have. But if you also have any specific questions, I will just mention there's a description box below, comment box. Definitely comment, there we go, definitely comment below if you have any questions you'd like to address, or topics or discussions. I know summer is, for a lot of people, has been really great. A lot of things have been reopening. Please stay safe out there. And I hope you guys are all happy and healthy and have a great day, month, year, whatever. And I will see you next time. Bye.